driving force in professional wrestling. Welcome back to episode 4 of the driving force in professional wrestling. Back behind the wheel of Maurice the Thunder Tank to discuss the past week. The past week, Sunday the 17th of February, right through to today, Saturday the 23rd. Now this is going to cover the WWE Elimination Chamber and all that has followed over the past week. So to kick things off, I want to talk about the call-ups, introductions, invasion, whatever you want to describe it as, of the NXT superstars that have found their way onto our screens of WWE Raw and Smackdown Live this past week. In my mind, I thought this was fantastic. I'm thoroughly enjoying the unpredictable nature, increasingly so unpredictable nature, of WWE in recent times. Not only is it a little bit less obvious, even to the regular viewer, who is going to win a match, but also it's becoming damn near impossible to predict what's going to happen, who's going to turn up from one week to the next. And as Renee would say, I'm here for it. Love this stuff. What a time. There's so much talent around at the moment, more than, quite frankly, we've ever known in professional wrestling history. Now, I've been watching wrestling for the best part of about 30 years. I'm adamant that we've never been living such a life of luxury as a professional wrestling fan as we are now. So these call-ups, these introductions, I think I'd prefer to call them, because we're certainly moving in the direction of WWE simply having a host of brands, rather than NXT as it perhaps initially was conceived, as something of a feeder program, a training school for the main roster shows. NXT in its own right, whilst achieving that still, is quite frankly a big brand with incredible programming. The production of the show, most importantly the quality of the performances, the feuds that we experience watching the show, unbelievable. I mean, what is going to be most enthralling is when AEW truly starts making some moves, put on a few more pay-per-view events, and then inevitably, as is rumoured for October later this year, start weekly television programs. AEW are not going to compete with WWE in a business sense, I shouldn't think, ever. Or at the very least, not for a very long time. But in terms of entertainment, enjoyment of the products, of the shows, the performances being produced, what we are going to achieve is a great deal of competition between performers. So that again is going to be amazing for us fans. First up, I think AEW will be looking at maybe competing against the less established brands of WWE, so NXT UK, NXT proper. I think that's where we begin. But yeah, talking about the guys that have been introduced to the wider audience, to the universe, over this past week, we've had Aleister Black, booked very strong. They've all been booked very strong. I mean, they've all come out and beaten some of the top guys in WWE this past week. FTR, Gargano and Ciampa. They beat the Raw Tag Team Champions, The Revival. Amazing. We had a victory over The Bar. Amazing. Aleister Black, real big victory over Elias and Andrade Cien Almas El Idolo this past week. What a push, straight out the gates. And then of course we had the one and only Ricochet. Great match teaming up with Finn. That's a pairing. It's also a hell of a match that we'd like to see. Finn, the Intercontinental Champion, versus Ricochet. And we also had Ricochet, which is really nice to see Eric Young this past week, up against the odds. Eric Young supported by Sanity around the ring apron. Ricochet, another victory. It's been great this past week. Enjoyed seeing them all turn up. With the abundance of talent in WWE at the moment, the biggest issue is, and what a wonderful issue for the company to have, what do you do with everyone? I think that's the challenge at the moment. So this past week's programming was booked quite differently to what we're traditionally used to. It wasn't necessarily booked following storylines in the usual manner. I mean, there was plenty of those. In particular, we looked at the ever-growing story of Kofi Kingston. Who? Kofi Kingston. But a lot of the stories have just been put to one side to give room to introduce and put the spotlight on NXT, which that's great so far as I'm concerned. Get more eyes on the product. We're pushing towards NXT potentially moving over onto the Fox network with SmackDown Live, and whether that be through the introduction of a second NXT show, in which case maybe what we will expect is slightly more heavily booked, heavy duty style NXT program on Fox, and the NXT show, regular weekly show on the network, maybe becomes somewhat more like it originally was, that build-up, that feeder, that introduction program. So anyway, well done to all those guys that showed up this past week. I enjoyed it. It also brings up an interesting talking point. A lot of people spoke out over the internet that they weren't too happy. Well, people aren't happy ever, really. Boring. Well, there was some murmurings and complaints that Ciampa and Gargano, why were they back together again? Why were they faces? Well, first and foremost, they've been threatening a DIY reemergence, a reunion, for quite some time now, if you follow the regular NXT shows and takeovers. So this has been a long time coming. Also, what perfect circumstances to realign for the mutual benefit of both parties, to team up and represent NXT and themselves, put themselves over to the wider audience, the universe, teaming up and beating two of the top tag teams on Raw and Smackdown. Makes perfect sense. Also, they were neither heel nor face on this week's television episodes of Raw and Smackdown, which was great. Grey area, love it. That's real life stuff. And on that point of blurring the lines, living in the grey, to me, this NXT, let's now use the term Invasion, made perfect sense that Ciampa and Gargano, Johnny Rumble, when we think back over Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series booking, you know, it didn't matter then if you were a heel or a face, did it? It was all about cross-brand competition. And that's exactly what we had here. Okay, now, moving on to what you've all, or two or three of my viewers, have been waiting for. The Golden Power Rankings this week. Going in at number 5, we have the man, Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch goes in this week thanks to her tumultuous beatdown of Charlotte Flair, Boo the Woo, and the most dangerous woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey. Now, Becky turned up, as we kind of expected her to, partway through the Elimination Chamber, directly after the Ronda Ruby Riott squash match. She turned up on crutches. Brother Chris and I sat there, living for it, as was Renee Young, expecting her to use those very crutches as weapons. And Becky, you did not disappoint. And neither did Ronda Rousey, who apparently put forth the suggestion that Becky go absolutely apeshit on her and beat the living daylights out of her. And Becky obliged. Marvellous stuff. Absolutely wonderful television. Damn, Never seen such a beatdown, quite frankly. Probably not since The Rock took out Foley with several chair shots to the head. Well, this was quite reminiscent of that. In some respects, I think I enjoyed this more. So Becky, in you go at 5. Gathering steam, heading into Mania. Road to gold. Coming in strong. At number 4, with the coup de grace, the Intercontinental Champion, Finn Balor. Now, Finn Balor went up in a handicap match. Odds stacked against him. Bobby Lashley, the defending champion, alongside his buddy Lio Rush, his mouthpiece. Finn Balor up against the pair of them in the handicap match. He could pin or submit either party and come away with the Intercontinental Championship. It's pretty clever booking in terms of getting the belt on Finn, because you get to have him defeat Lio Rush, which opens up what is still evolving and proving an interesting little storyline between Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. After Finn beat Lio Rush to take Bobby Lashley's championship, Bobby gave Lio an absolute belting. They then were defeated this week on Raw in a tag team match by the debuting Ricochet with Finn Balor. Another fantastic performance from Finn, which is why he's entering at number 4, whilst I go on chatting about Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley. And there was a little segment backstage where Lio Rush was losing his shit because he let everybody down, he let himself down, let Bobby down. And he got in Bobby's face a bit. Bobby remained calm. He tried to encourage Lio Rush. He said, we need to step aside, we need to reevaluate things. Go away, Lio Rush, and think about it. What is it that you want to achieve? Are you ready for this? That was actually a really good, well-delivered promo backstage from Bobby Lashley. It shows he can do it. I think maybe it's once he's out there in front of the live audience that he struggles in that regard. Possibly, I don't know. But damn, the guy can go in the ring. So just try to keep his matches a little bit more fast-paced. Focus on his power, on his dominating moveset. Okay, so back to the Intercontinental Champion. It's nice to see him wearing a championship belt, quite frankly. Well done, Finn Balor. In you go. He's been on quite a meteoric rise of his own just lately, and well deserved. Now, going in at number 3, Velveteen Dream. Velveteen has consistently, over the last 12 months, produced incredible matches, brimful of storytelling, well executed moves, great selling. His promos are outstanding. The guy is great fun. But you know what? If he's this good now, so soon, just imagine what he's going to be like in a few years' time. The future is very bright for us wrestling fans with Velveteen Dream. Living the dream. So Velveteen, he won the NXT North American Championship this week, beating Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Rumble, Johnny A-Hole. He beat him. Good match, as you'd anticipate between the two. Absolute classic encounter. What else could it be? They're both incredible talents, full of skill, and all those aforementioned above, the storytelling, the selling, the delivery, they've both got it all going on. That's why it's nice to see Gargano up on the Raw and Smackdown shows this week. You can't foul with Gargano. Same to be said for Velveteen Dream, now your NXT North American Champion. Okay, now going in at 2 is Daniel Bryan, Team Vegan Extreme, Captain Planet, our social justice warrior. Now, I really dislike Daniel Bryan at the moment. It's aided to by the fact that I was never his biggest fan previously. I didn't enjoy him as a good guy. This fits him to a T. Daniel Bryan, in my opinion, is a far more natural heel than he is a face. And therefore, right now, at this point in his WWE career, he is excelling like never before. So much more personality, so much more character. I love to hate him. Now, if that's not the sign of a good, successful heel, I don't know what is. The only person that's got more heat with me in the industry right now, beside Nia Jax, is Dave Meltzer. Because the more I read his reporting, the more I appreciate that he doesn't really watch the show very closely. It all comes across as Chinese whispers. Somebody else watched the show whilst simultaneously reading a book or scrolling Instagram or whatever it is they're up to that day. They weren't concentrating too hard. They then reviewed the show. Somebody read that review. The next day, without rereading it, that second person reviewed the show. Dave Meltzer then read that review, and he then posted his own opinion on the show. That's the impression I get from Dave Meltzer's reporting as late. The guy has just got a big piece of shit in his eye when he's looking at WWE. It stings. It smells. Dave Meltzer really needs to go and wash his face and get that shit out of his eye, because he cannot see the product that he's reviewing. He's missing out on a whole lot of great wrestling, great storytelling, and instead seemingly reporting everything with an extremely negative and bitter tint. It's rather like when somebody that just pissed you off 5 seconds earlier says something damn hilarious. In that moment that you're angry with them, you can't appreciate their joke. It's just not funny, not coming out of their mouth. That's on you. It's not on them and their joke. Their joke was damn hilarious. Well, that's very much the way Dave Meltzer's review of WWE comes across. Anyway, moving on. D-Bryan, Captain Planet. What a performance. Not just in the gauntlet match last week, which essentially set up this whole head of steam that we'll be discussing shortly. Spoiler alert. But also in the Elimination Chamber. D-Bryan went the distance. He was in at the start. He was there at the finish. He won the damn thing. He took a brutal beating. He dished out brutal beatings. The finish to that Elimination Chamber match with Kofi was as dramatic, was as emotive a wrestling match as arguably we've ever seen, or certainly up there with the best of them. Most definitely, it's up there. Now, swiftly transitioning onto the Golden Power Rankings. Number 1 this week, none other than Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston needs his hashtag Pancake Championship belt soon. We hope he's going to get it at Fastlane and roll straight into WrestleMania as our WWE champion. Let's see about that. Maybe we get a shady finish, and that'll set up a rematch for WrestleMania. Who knows? Either way, we're high on Kofi. He came out second best in the Elimination Chamber. But the guy came out at the very top of the universe, and at the very top of this week's Power Rankings, for good reason. Kofi made us believe like never before. We know the guy's good, we know he's talented. He'd become something of a Rumble spot monkey, the legend of Kofi and the Rumble over the last several years, as we've spoken about in previous episodes of the show, because he's been number 1 now, I believe, 2 weeks in a row. God damn, Kofi Kingston setting records, setting our hearts on fire when he lost the Elimination Chamber. But we can take it because it's good storytelling. It's what it is to be a wrestling fan. Wins, losses, we enjoy it all. It's all about cultivating that degree of emotional reaction within. He took us on one hell of a roller coaster ride throughout the course of Elimination Chamber. As good an individual performance in the course of a week's television as, again, possibly we've ever seen. Kofi Kingston run the damn show. Kofi Kingston run pro wrestling this past week. And Kofi Kingston pinned Daniel Bryan, the champion, in a big multi-man tag team match this week on SmackDown Live, further gathering momentum, which has Shane O'Mac coming out and announcing Kofi Kingston as #1 contender going into our next pay-per-view, WWE Fastlane. We've got Bryan, Captain Planet, defending against our pancake hero, Kofi Kingston, at Fastlane. That's our main event. And significantly as well, it had been years since the WWE Championship had main evented a dual brand WWE pay-per-view. It's always the Universal Championship. It's always something like that. Kofi Kingston, okay, and arguably Daniel Bryan, but Kofi Kingston really elevated the prestige of the WWE Championship without even winning the thing. Now that takes some doing. And now, this week's Hollywood Walk of Shame. Going in this week, purely because I've not taken much of a liking to her, is Toni Storm. Now, Brother Chris and I, of Golden Streak fame, both agree that Toni Storm is massively overrated. Now, she goes in this week because she competed defending her NXT UK Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley, who she had previously defeated to win this belt at the Blackpool TakeOver pay-per-view, much to my disappointment. My main issue with Toni Storm is her awful posture. Now, unless at some point it comes out that she suffers with terrible scoliosis or some other kind of disability, in which case, full marks, much respect for achieving what she has done. She just has awful muscular posture. She really needs to build up her back strength. Funny enough, I was watching away NXT TakeOver Blackpool those couple of months ago, ranting away at the television during that match. In my professional opinion, as a personal trainer, revered personal trainer over the last 20 years, well, almost 20 years, getting up to that her posture was diabolical, her back looked terribly weak, and I wouldn't be surprised if she incurred regular injuries as a consequence, when the commentary team at the time pointed out that in fact she had just recently hurt her back. Well, there we have it. I thought to myself there and then, bang, called that one. I worry that she won't have a terribly long career. It wouldn't take much. She's just got to get in the gym. She's got to work in a slightly more disciplined fashion about balancing out her muscular posture. It is as bad as I have ever seen a professional wrestler. To me, she's just not taking it seriously enough. I don't know why she's been given such a big push when, to me, physically, she might have technique and wrestling skill and ability. Physically, she's just not ready for this role. She needs to sort that out. Get in the performance center, get in the gym, work with somebody that can help you in organizing a specific regime to balance out the body, and then I think we'll think about it again. But she's been given this unjust, massive push. She's not that exciting. She's got a little bit of sort of manufactured charisma about her. I'm just not buying into it. It doesn't feel very natural. She keeps pulling a funny face, sticks her chin out a bit like Bruce Forsyth, and she's always like biting, you know, the inside of her mouth or something. She's always pulling this funny face, and wallop, there's that chin again. Combined with that terrible posture, Christ almighty, is very mean at me. But she just reminds me of the characters from Ed, Edd and Eddy, the fabled cartoon of yesteryear. Check out Ed, Edd and Eddy, and you'll see what I mean. So, as mean as I'm being, but there we go, that's what the Hollywood Walk of Shame can often be about. In you go, Toni Storm. Well, that sums up another episode of the driving force in professional wrestling. Another quick shout out to Kofi Kingston. Now, I'm really excited about this rise from Kofi Kingston because it's refreshing. It's given us something to get behind and to support, something unexpected, and something that seemingly has united the vast majority of wrestling fans, we're all very opinionated. We've all got our views on who we like and who we don't, and how things should be booked. We must be practically unanimous that we all want to see Kofi Kingston win the WWE Championship. And as I sign out, enjoy the week ahead. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and may your palm be lined with gold.